Usually I like to be done with these topics and move on to new ones, but I decided to come back to breach of contract online because there's been some silly stuff going on, and I'm partially responsible for it, but, you know, let's talk about it and see what's happening. So if you didn't see my last video, basically I made my breach of contract online is the worst game ever video, and in that video I was very negative about the game, pointing out many things that I didn't like about it, as well as other stuff like them stealing the concept for maps like Shipment from Call of Duty 4. After that video was done, I made myself a Steam review and posted it on the Breach of Contract Steam page, which I normally do whenever I see a game that I don't like, or games I do like as well. I do like some games, by the way. People seem to think that I only dislike games. No. There's several games I like. But anyways, I ended up posting my review, and I largely expanded on the points I talked about in the video, and the developer decided to respond to me. A couple times. So the developer started off by saying that the fact that they offered me a key at all was very generous, and that my bashing of their game, according to them, was a stab in the back. Now let's take a little rundown in how I usually get keys for games, or how I get review copies, and that's through a website called Keymailer. They send out review copies for games, so when you send out a game as a review copy, it can get reviewed. Under no circumstances am I required to review your game positively or even say a single nice thing about it. Because if I did that, that would be a gross bias towards my audience, and that would be considered bribery. But you know, maybe the developer didn't know that, and that's going to be a recurring trend in this video. And the developer responded to me again, saying that I only showed one of the maps, therefore my entire review was basically invalid according to them. Even though nothing in my review was regarding the maps other than the fact that the map I played on was an obvious ripoff of a map from another game, and literally everything else I pointed out as flaws in the game would have been present no matter what map I was playing on. There's also the fact that there was no one playing the game, so I couldn't really experience all the content anyways, so in my eyes that's pretty much the same as it not existing at all. It was basically a way for the developer to say my opinions were invalid without addressing any of the flaws that I pointed out in the review itself. Now around this time, there were other people starting to get involved in the comments of this review, and they were overwhelmingly on my side of the opinion, so the developer ended up changing their tune. They said that they will update the game to the best of their abilities, and that they were sorry they were not able to give an amazing first glimpse. Okay, cool, awesome. FYI, I'm still a learning game developer. Also totally fine, I have no problem with that. Then they go on to say they're only 18, but they're still looking forward to improving their abilities. And then they said that there's going to be some updates coming for the game very soon. This is where it gets a little bit wonky, because that only 18 line starts to permeate the rest of what the developer is saying from there on out. So shortly after this, there was an update on the game page itself, and they said, I understand there may be a few concerns about the project. First to mention, I'm 18 years old, so this project is on a low budget and more so just about myself and my programming abilities. All in all, I've been working on this project for many months, so I expect people to be a little bit more understanding about the current situation. Breach of Contract is an amazing game with quite a lot to offer, but more to be known upcoming. Then they go on to say there will be single-player bots, 2 new maps, and a higher player count. Okay, so I'm gonna try to figure out where to begin with this one, because I have a few very big problems with it. Now, first of all, your age has nothing to do with the game you developed. You could be 8 years old, 18, or 80. The product that you created and you're selling for $10 on the storefront is not a good product. Doesn't matter how old you are, if you're selling it and it's of that poor quality, then my opinion is going to be exactly the same regardless. I understand that you're young, you're just starting to get into game development, and that's totally fine, but you need to realize that the game you've created isn't good, and it rips off other games, it barely functions itself, and anyone who buys it right now will not be able to play it. This isn't me being mean to the 18-year-old, in fact I had no idea how old they were until they told me multiple times after I'd already made my video and review. If you make a game of this quality and then you say, oh well I'm new so it doesn't matter, buy my game anyways because I think it's good, that's not really an okay thing to do. You can't hide behind your age or your programming experience when you make a bad product. Your product is bad no matter what. Hence why there are plenty of AAA titles that I dislike as well or have major flaws. It doesn't matter how old, how many people are developing it, or how much experience they have. And also, you're 18. You can't really hide behind that age anymore. You're considered a legal adult and you're responsible for your own actions. Now, I will also mention that the developer has released an update for the game that does offer some improvements on the product. Earlier today, there was an update that improves things things like lighting fixes, smoother aiming recoil patterns, and some texture improvements among some other minor things. And that's good. You're updating your game and you're trying to make it a better product. I understand that. However, aside from these minor fixes, everything about your game remains the same. The game is still being sold for $10, even though there's nobody playing it. It only offers a minute amount of content, and you have yet to remove the obviously IP infringing map from your game. Now, this stuff needs to absolutely take priority over minor bug fixes at the moment. The current state and the quality of the game is so low that I have a problem with it being sold for $10, nonetheless even being on the Steam store. It should probably be available for free on itch.io, which I know that it was at one point. This game should not be released as a full product on Steam, and you have released it as a full product. You can say that, oh, you're gonna make it better as time goes on. If that were the case, it should have at least been released in early access. Although if it were released in early access, my opinion would be largely the same, because in early access, that's still release, and your game should at least be functional in things like the main menu. Okay, so now that we've gone through all of that, let's talk about the new things I've found, since I kept having to go back to this Steam page over and over again. Because, of course, I found new things. So the first thing I noticed was a curious positive review that suddenly appeared on the store page for the game, so I went and looked at the friends of the reviewer. Wouldn't you know it, they are friends with the developer. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know exactly what sort of relationship you have with the developer, but you do have one, therefore your opinion is largely biased, and that should be reflected in the review for the game. You have not done that though, and considering it's the only positive review, well, that raises a couple red flags. The next thing I discovered with my handy dandy little Shazam app is that the music used in the trailer is called Gothic Storm or Stand and Fight by Chris Hay. I think I pronounced your name right. If I didn't, I apologize. Basically, Chris Hay is a composer for a variety of different movie and video game soundtracks, including some very high profile ones, including Rise of the Planet of the Apes and many video games. Now, these tracks are not available as royalty free, and I highly doubt that the developer, considering they have a very low budget according to them, was able to purchase the rights to use it in their trailer. So I contacted Chris Hay and received a reply from his record label this morning, thanking me for notifying them. You can't be doing that. You can't take music from other sources and just use it if you want to. That's not how copyright works. Now, speaking of copyright, I've also got the logo that was used for the game from a website called artstation.com, thanks to Reaper from Sentinels of the Store for sending me that, along with a bunch of other information that he was uncovering on this topic as well. He also sent me some comparison shots for the other maps in the game, and while the developer seems to have made this shipment ripoff themselves, it seems like they ported over some other maps from the Unity store, including this one called Middle East Environment. It's available right now on the Unity store for $49, and here's some comparison shots for you to look at. So it seems rather likely that the maps that the developer so desperately wanted me to play weren't even made by them. So there you have it. That's my updated video on breach of contract online. I don't want to make another video on this, so I would highly recommend that the developer just kinda take a step back, probably take out your copyright infringing map, and then just drop the price down to 50 cents or something. I mean, ideally it would just be off the Steam store, but the developer seems to think that their game is really good regardless of what literally everyone else is saying, so, you know, one can only hope. I am PattyJack, and I'll see you next time, hopefully covering something else.